Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host for today. Well, it is July 7th, 2023, and we are definitely in the right place at the right time here in Canada. If you were looking for something to do that could be a positive and impactful thing here in Canada, there are a ton of things we can do on the road ahead. So stick around. We're going to go over some of those today. Now, we do have a big agenda here today. So again, I just want to remind you that when we move quickly on the National Leadership Briefing, it is not because we're trying to leave people behind. As a matter of fact, we're trying to cover as much space and time as we can over the National Leadership Briefing hour that we have so that you can reference it again later in the post-briefing notes. Remember, you're going to be receiving an email after the briefing today that is going to have all of the segments identified and broken down into time sequences. It's also going to have the supporting documentation that we referenced during the briefing. So if I reference a web page, you're going to have a link to that place on the website where you can click. It's going to be really easy to navigate, but during the briefing, we must move quickly. So let's get into the agenda today. As someone who shows up right on time in the beginning of the briefing, you get the benefit of hearing the agenda. So it's always a good time to do that every single time. So here it is. First of all, what is the National Leadership Briefing? We have a lot of new people on the call today, so I am going to give kind of an overview of the strategy of the National Leadership Briefing. You're obviously here on the call now. You came for a reason, thinking it was something. I'm going to make sure that what your expectations are is actually what it is, and I'll review the strategy with you. Also going to talk about the NLB Essentials and why it is that those 4 training videos on our website are set up the way they are. Again, we're going to look at those 2 things, the National Leadership Briefing overview and the NLB Essentials videos from a strategic perspective, because if you don't understand that you have strategic tools in your hands when you see the briefing and when you review the videos, you won't use them appropriately. So we want to make sure that you understand that. Then we're going to move over into the boardroom. We're going to be talking about 3 things in the boardroom. First thing is we're going to be talking about resistance and the tyranny of civil government and what we call the point of persecution. Now, I mentioned this on a previous briefing, but we didn't get to it. But I really want to discuss this with you and kind of use an illustration to show you how it is that you resist the tyrannical reach of civil government and what the point of persecution looks like. So we're going to go into the boardroom and talk about that. Second thing is I want to use an illustration to describe for you why it is that you might see sometimes government leaders rising up out of the pack, either prime ministers or leaders of political parties or even members of legislatures in your own provinces, where you see leaders that will come out of the pack and get seated and then begin to act in ways that are contradictory to what it is they told you they were going to do when they said they wanted to get the job of getting the leadership role within the party or the prime minister's job. So I want to show you an illustration. It kind of explains what's going on as a leader rises out of the pack to become the leader of a party. The second thing is, or the third thing is, and the final thing is, we have what we consider to be critical components of your personal action plan. I just want to go through some bullet points with you to make sure that you know that you got to build these components into your personal action plan if you are planning to be an effective citizen engaging. If that's your plan, you want to be effective, you want to get the maximum results, I want to make sure that you've got these components in your personal action plan. Then we're going to come back to the desk after that, out of the boardroom back here, and I want to review a couple of things with you. I want to give you a quick update on Bill C-311. That is Kathy Wagenthal's bill, Bill C-311, that sought to protect children in the womb, children from violent attacks of people who are attacking the mother. There was a piece of legislation that we just had a very, very critical occurrence happen. We've got to make sure you're updated on that. I want to give you also an update on the Conservative Party of Canada convention and what we're doing to prepare to get to convention. Now, if you don't have any connection with the conversation about the Conservative Party of Canada Policy and Constitution Convention coming up in Quebec City, It's not just for the people that are engaging and going to convention. What we're going to cover today is what you can do to support what they're doing. And then finally, I'm going to be discussing something that's really important today, and that is I want you to know, obviously we're always on the briefing here today encouraging you to take a stand, but what is it that you should be doing when you see somebody next to you or in your orbit or in your sphere of influence take a stand? What can you do to support them? And what does support look like? Is it just a wink and a nod going, hey, way to go? Or are there things that you can be doing? So we're going to take a look at real life examples of what happens when someone takes a stand for the things that you believe in and how you can best support them. So that's a big day today. I know it's a pretty aggressive agenda, but let's get into it right after this video. And we shall begin with just a strategic review of the National Leadership Briefing itself. I look forward to serving you today and appreciate your time. We'll make it worth your while. Bye for now. Okay, so let's get started. What is the National Leadership Briefing? Now, you just saw a video that closed with a website, and that's nlbcanada.ca. nlbcanada.ca is where you will find the registration link for the National Leadership Briefing. Now, if you're watching this video of the briefing and somebody has shared it with you, you need to go to the National Leadership Briefing website and register so that you receive what's called the post-briefing notes. I mentioned them before, but it's critically important that you have that information following each briefing, because the 1 hour that we spend together once a month, that's really all it is. We have a National Leadership Briefing call 1 hour once a month, is intended as a touch point only. This is just our opportunity to come together, to give ourselves a wink and a nod each and connect with each other and go, look, we all understand we're rallying around our principles, the things that we believe in, but we want to make sure that we're only considering it a touch point and then going back and doing the work in our own spheres of influence. So with those post-briefing notes, you can take back to where you're going, back where you live, where you reside, where your calling is and where your anointing is and all of your covering and all of the things that you do in your life. We just want 1 hour once a month. That's the National Leadership Briefing structure as far as the schedule goes. Now, what is it that we do when we come together on the National Leadership Briefing? Well, the first thing we do is we set aside all of the things that divide us, because there is a very, very diverse cross-section of people that come on the National Leadership Briefing, a lot of different faiths, a lot of different denominations within faiths, a lot of different perspectives. But what we do is we say to ourselves, we're going to set aside all of the things that we differ on, and we're just going to rally around the things that we believe in. And in fact, we're going to rally around 4 very specific things, which are the things that you'll see over my shoulder here. They're called the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars are, number 1, we believe, all of us together that come on this call, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. We believe that parents have the right to raise their children in the same faith tradition that perhaps they were raised in, and we believe that that should happen and take place without the interference of civil government or any other organization or structure that's established by people outside of the family. It's by design parents are placed in as leads of families, and it is by design that they are to raise the children. We believe that. So we set aside all other views relating to that, and we just go, parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. The second thing is, we believe that when we reach out and we elect someone to serve us in civil government, we expect them to respect our right of belief and freedom of religion. So if our freedom of religion is important to them, we will see them rise up out of their seats within the legislatures and in the House of Commons and in the Senate, and we'll see them rise up in the municipal council chambers. And if they really do respect our right of belief and freedom of religion, they will defend it. So that's the second pillar. We believe that and have an expectation that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Now, the third pillar, I believe it's the heart of everything we do here. It's my favorite pillar. I believe that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. We believe collectively, all of us together, that when we elect lawmakers in our country, or we elect representatives in our provincial legislatures, we expect them to first check the box on any policy or law and to ensure that it is safe for vulnerable people. Now, that is a priority because we believe that laws have been passed recently that are very dangerous for vulnerable people, like our euthanasia regime that's been established here in Canada. That's a real problem. Or our lack of law when it comes to the issue of abortion. We believe that many vulnerable people, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, have been damaged by our lack of laws and policies related to abortion. So these are the things that we use as kind of guiding posts, but we all rally around that third pillar. And then finally, we believe collectively, all of us together, that it is inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. A civil government that spends money we do not have is spending money and creating debt, and that yoke of debt, that weight of that debt, is going to manifest as taxation in the lives of our children and future generations, and our children will be born bond servants of civil government. We believe that those elected representatives must begin the all-important work and continue the work to alleviate that debt off of the backs of our children and future generations. So on the National Leadership Briefing, we set aside all of our differences, we rally around these four pillars, and we look for ways to advance them into society, culture, politics, and government. Now, how is it that we do that? Well, we do that because, again, we come together once a month for 1 hour, make sure we touch base, get the latest update, what's going on, bring some new people, always introducing new people to the National Leadership Briefing. That's the key, is you're always adding people to the briefing, people you know that believe in these things. Bring them on board every month. They're brand new. We want to raise them up just like you were raised up, and we want to look for opportunities on the horizon where we can advance these principles into society, culture, politics, and government. How do we do that? Well, move your attention to the National Leadership Briefing website again, where you're going to find a web page there that's called NLB Essentials. Now, there are 4 videos there on the NLB Essentials webpage. They're all short. It doesn't take long to go through this, but once you watch those 4 videos, you're going to have a foundation of understanding as to what it is that we do and how we do it. Let me give you an example. First of all, the 4 pillars that you see behind me, they actually came from somewhere. They came from people just like you that we surveyed across Canada so that you knew you're not all alone. There are a lot of people out there that believe in these same things, and you've got to go look for them in your sphere of influence. So we put a video there called the 4 Pillar Story that tells the story of where these pillars came from and how it is that you can reach out and find people just like you to join us here, add their voice to ours here on the National Leadership Briefing. That's called the 4 Pillar Training video. The second video that you're going to see on there is something called the U training video, because some people think when they start coming to National Leadership Briefing and other things like this, that we're actually trying to drag you away from where you are onto some sort of a political battlefield or someplace that you're not called to be. That is so far from what it is that we're doing here. I need you to watch the U training video so you understand that. Where in fact, what we want you to do is stay where you're called to be. Where God wants you to be is where we want you to be, and then we want to serve you there. But we want you to get straight in your head about what you're experiencing there and what the opportunities and threats might be, where you are and the things that you can capitalize. So that's what we do, is we train, teach, and raise you up where you are there to be effective in your own community. Now, the third video that you're going to see there is called the Horizon Training video. And I alluded to it just briefly just a moment ago when I said that we scan the horizon looking for opportunities and threats. That's what we do for you here on the National Leadership Briefing, is we look for opportunities where you can advance the things that you believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. Or we look on the horizon and take a look at what kind of threats are emerging, and we use the immediate road ahead of us to prepare ourselves to meet those opportunities or prepare a defense against the threats. So watch that video as well. You're going to learn not only how we can help you, but how you can come to learn how to scan the horizon yourself and see those same things for yourself and serve the people around you, duplicating what we do for you here on the briefing as well. And then finally, the last video that's on that National Leadership Briefing page is one that I think is critically important for all of us, and that is the Sphere Authority Training Template. Now, I'm going to show you the Sphere Authority Training Template in the boardroom in just a moment, but I want you to know this is an incredibly important set of or understanding that I really believe that most Canadians need right now, because we are looking at civil government acting in an aggressive and tyrannical way, and focusing their attention and attacking people like you and me that have the views and values we possess for political gain, to establish control and gather power unto themselves. If you don't understand what's happening structurally in the Sphere Authority Training Template, what we communicate there, I believe that you are significantly disadvantaged in navigating the road ahead. So go watch that video as well. So you've got the 4-pillar story, you've got the U training video, the Horizon training video, and the Sphere Authority training video. And then there are some templates that you can download to help you share that information with other people. And it's all designed to share, because again, we want you to bring people with you to the National Leadership Briefing, invite them to add their voice to ours. By raising the number of voices that we have and we bring together, we raise our total influence that we can have in those other spheres of society. So that is the National Leadership Briefing, the strategy. Some of the points there, if you stick around, stay on the briefing, come on every single month, don't miss any. Come on every single month. And if you miss a briefing, make sure you watch the video after the briefing, but make sure that you're always raising your game, up in your game, and getting better and better at understanding these principles so that you can share them where you are. All right, we're going to leave it at that for now, because I want to get into the boardroom, and we're going to talk first about that resistance training, a little bit of talk about tyranny of civil government and what we call the point of persecution, and a couple more things before we come back to the desk. All right, see you in the boardroom. Appreciate your time so far. Looking forward to serving you there. Bye for now. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number 4, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Okay, well, thanks for your attention so far. Looking forward to coming to you here from the boardroom here, because this is my favorite spot. As you know, for those of you who are new, this place is where we drill and train. This is what I encourage you to do, is look forward to moments like this, and always refer to the website for any tools that I mentioned. And of course, you're going to have the post-briefing notes again today that you can reference for follow-up. Now, this behind me is the Sphere Authority Training Template that I was referencing. This is one of the templates that we use in the videos that you'll find on the NLB Essentials webpage of the website. So NLB Essentials webpage on the NLB Canada website. Go there, watch this video. But today, I told you we're going to do 3 things in the boardroom. First of all, we're going to talk about something called the point of persecution, which is where we take this template that we have available to you on the website. You get the foundational training that comes by watching the video, but then we also use it ongoingly to point out various other things. Like, for example, when we talk about the transfer of mandate or the transfer of authority from the individual to civil government at election time, we might just focus on this little area right here, which is this transfer point, where we transfer the authority in what's called a mandate to civil government to represent us at that level, in that place, in that sphere. So we'll focus on that. Well, today we're talking about the point of persecution. So if you go and watch this video, this sphere authority training video, then you can then apply what we're talking about today. But here we're talking about a civil government as a sphere of authority within several governments and spheres of authority in society, like family government and the sphere of authority of the family, church government, and self-government. That's you making your own personal decisions. You operate within a jurisdictional limit of your authority, which is indicated by the black line, and you have responsibilities that you need to take care of in your own life. You know, what you eat, whether you work out, whether you treat yourself poorly and develop bad habits, all of those are your own decisions to make, utilizing the authority that you have within that sphere of authority. But what happens, and we teach this in depth at the NLB Essentials webpage, what happens is that civil government is unique among all the other spheres of government or spheres of authority in our society, in that we delegate to them as citizens special rights and powers so that they can use those rights and powers for the betterment of all of society. And those two that we focus on are the right of taxation and the right of legislating. So they can legislate, make laws on our behalf, and they can tax to take the money and then spread it around in society. That is the intent of those delegated authorities. But we always talk about civil government, how because it is made up of people, it will never be perfect. And civil government has a tendency, if left to its own devices, to mutate out beyond its sphere of authority, and it'll actually grow its influence into the other spheres of authority in society. So it'll impose itself upon the church. It'll impose itself upon the family and the individual, and it will bloat, it will grow itself by gathering power to itself through legislation and taxation. So what we are here today to talk about is that we want you to understand that this expansion of this sphere into these areas needs to be pushed back against. The resistance needs to come from you as an individual, as families, and as the church. We need to push back against. Well, how do we do that? Well, of course, on the National Leadership Briefing, we teach you that you do it by affirming and asserting these principles, the right of parents to raise their children the way they want. For example, if civil government expands itself into the family and says, I want to raise your children as civil government, then as the family, you can say, wait a second, I'm asserting my authority as a parent to raise my children the way I want. And I have thousands of friends in the National Leadership Briefing every single month that get together. We all believe in this, and that is what you will use to push back civil government into their proper jurisdictional limit of their authority, which, by the way, is actually defined in the Constitution. Civil government knows where it's supposed to be, but it pushes out anyway. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is to add this one other bit of information for you, and that is what we call the point of persecution. If we're all out there thinking that we are the persecuted ones and we're just walking around as losers, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm constantly being persecuted, I'm constantly taking heat, I'm living an oppressed life, all of that, that is not the case at all. The only time persecution will come is when you begin to push back against civil government and try and push them back into their jurisdictional limit of their authority. So this limit here that they expand upon, that is the definition of tyranny, the expansion or imposition of civil government on other spheres of authority. But the point of persecution comes right here. This is when it will come to you, is when you actually push back, you will feel persecuted because you are working in a way that is contradictory to what civil government wants to do, which is expand. So expect this moment in time to occur, and expect it to be a point of resistance and a point of persecution. Then when it happens, when you assert these rights, when you assert these principles against civil government, and you feel this pressure and this resistance, and you feel the real persecution, which is the pushing back of civil government, you will not be surprised. You won't be that, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That's what we don't want to. We don't want to waste any time being shocked and surprised. We just know it's going to happen. We're going to experience persecution when we push back against civil government. Okay, so we're clear on that? Good. Let's move on. Yeah, and again, go back and watch the National Leadership Briefing webpage. There's these great videos that goes into this in more detail. Now let's take a look at the next thing I wanted to talk about. Pardon me. And don't laugh at my art. Everybody always gives me a hard time about my art, but the truth is, I think it looks not bad. I wanted to talk about sometimes people get really excited when they elect civil government leaders, and let's say they elect him as their local member of parliament, and then one day the person rises up and says, you know what, I want to be the leader of this party, and one day say, I'm going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. Well, I wanted to just show you with this one very simple illustration why it is so important that we engage and assert these things that we believe into the conversations in politics and government. First of all of these people down here, these are all the government leaders out there. These are all of the people here in society that have great jobs. They do great work locally. But as I say, when somebody says, wait a second, I'm going to start climbing this mountain, I'm going to start going up, I want to become the leader of this political mountain here in Canada. And this is the Prime Minister's office right here. We'll call that the Prime Minister's office. But it could also be the Premier of the province or the mayor of your small town. But it's whatever the pinnacle is of the environment that we're talking about. But let's say this person here says, I want to become the Prime Minister. And let's use Pierre Poilievre as an example, because he's a recently elected leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Well, I want you to know that as he begins to climb that mountain and execute his own personal plan to become Prime Minister, he is going to run into resistance as he goes up that mountain. And that resistance is going to come in the form of people who are going to try and keep him down unless he makes commitments to them that will allow him to continue to work up that mountain to achieve that high office. That high office is protected by years, decades and years and hundreds of years of political influence that have been established in different organization structures and just general resistance. So we've got culture and society is also. So as he moves up there, he is negotiating all the way up the mountain with people that are on the mountain already. There are people like we could take a look at, they are like unions. Union leaders are already on the mountain. He's got to negotiate his way up there because he's negotiating for support that will enable him to move to the next level. And all the way along, he is being talked to in his ear, saying, if you do this, we will let you climb that mountain that much higher and climb that mountain that much higher. And there'll be setbacks. That's what this is. There'll be setbacks. There'll be some losses along the way. You got to learn how to lose if you're ever going to win, and that's going to happen along the way. But he is negotiating all the way up the mountain. This is where we have failed in the past, is we have left it to others to negotiate on the way up the mountain, and we have said to them, it's okay, just you seem like a nice guy, we'll evaluate you when you're there. But all the deals are done on the way up the mountain. Now that is the road to the next election. This is the road to the next election. He is climbing a mountain, and he's going around Canada, and he's talking to the Muslim groups, he's talking to the Christian groups, he's talking to pro-life conservatives, he's talking to secular conservatives that are fiscal conservatives, he's talking to mothers, fathers, he's talking to everybody right now, and he's saying, what do I have to give you so that I can ascend to this high office, this Prime Minister's office? And we are in a point in time where we are to negotiate our position on these issues with him. But if we don't engage in the political processes of Canada, then what we're going to find is that these are going to be opportunities that are missed, and we will not have that negotiation complete. So this is what I'm encouraging everybody to do, is engage in these processes as he climbs the mountain, be there present to negotiate with him, so that we actually, when he gets to that high office, we have an agreement in place on things like pro-family, pro-life policies, pro-life commitments that he's going to be putting in place as the Prime Minister. Now, that's the second thing I want to show you today. I got one more thing to show you now, and that is this, is what do we have to commit to as our own personal plan if we want to be as effective as we can be in negotiating these things? Well, these are the critical components of what I call your personal action plan. The critical components of these plans must be, first of all, you have to be resolved in your engagement. You need to make one decision, and that decision is that I am going to exercise my personal influence. I'm going to use my authority as a citizen, as a constituent, and I am resolved in exercising that authority and engaging in this process to elect a good elected official, whether it's the Prime Minister or your local municipal councillor. But you've got to be resolved. You got to make that one decision and allow the power of the decision to come in behind you and move and keep you propelled, because it's not going to be easy. The second thing is you've got to be willing to put in the work. If you go to the You Training video, we talk about the importance of you developing what's called your sphere of influence, your own sphere of influence. It takes work to build a sphere of influence. You have to be a student of gathering people together. That is part of it. You need to be committed to putting in the work. This third thing that you need is you need to be committed to the long view. We talked about how politicians they learn how to lose on the way to winning. Well, we have to take the long view too and expect there to be setbacks along the way. We know there are going to be some challenges, but we are committed to the long view. We want to be effective over a long period of time. We know there's going to be some losses along the way, and we are going to continue to move forward. And then finally, we want to maintain a posture of serving others. We do not want to get to a place where we take on this whole call that we feel, or this whole mission, and it becomes all about me accomplishing my mission. No, it's all about you helping others accomplish theirs. That is the key to the plan, and being effective in gathering support around you is when people look into your eyes and they see that you are genuinely there to lighten their load and you genuinely understand their needs and their concerns. This is where you will find people gravitating to you, growing your influence, and making it possible for you to influence the conversations that are going on when it comes to, for example, people moving up to these high offices on the political mountain in Canada. So that's all I wanted to say today. I know we jumped real quickly through all of that, but it's a great opportunity for you to level up, which is what we do in the boardroom here, level up your understanding after you've watched those first 4 videos in the National Leadership Briefing Essentials webpage of the site. Now let's go back to the desk, because I've got some great updates for you on the CPC convention. And I also want to make sure we update ourselves on Bill C-311, and that is the baby in the womb and protecting babies in the womb. I know you're going to want to hear about that as well. Thanks for your attention. We'll see you back at the desk. Bye for now.
We're crying out for the church to be the church in the community.
The ecclesia is a relational model that God has been calling forward.
Being present is about showing up on a regular basis.
I'm convinced that God will birth a love in one's heart for the place He has put you in. And sometimes that requires a process. Sometimes we don't initially love the place where we are or where God is sending us, but we respond in obedience.
And I believe there must be the restoration of the cry of God in the heart of us as leaders, to cry out to God for our cities.
And for those of you who have a heart for your local community, then I would encourage you to participate in what we call Transformer Calls, focused on your engagement and the love that you have for your communities. Okay, like I said, aggressive agenda today, so let's keep moving forward. We have a couple of things to review here, and then I've got a special treat for you. It's kind of a bit of a surprise here to finish out the day on the home stretch. But first of all, we wanted to cover two things at the desk. First of all, the update on Bill C-311. It is the Violence Against Pregnant Women Act bill. I want to give you an update on that. Also want to give you an update on the Conservative Party of Canada convention. We have been on a road towards convention, exercising as much influence as we can on that road. And ultimately, we want to be at convention and having the opportunity to vote on new policies and constitutional amendments that might be available for us to vote on at the convention, things that represent our views and values and the principles, of course, that are represented in the 4 pillars. But let's start with Bill C-311 before we get to the Conservative Party of Canada convention. First of all, the Violence Against Pregnant Women Act. Now, sometimes the name of a piece of legislation or a legislative proposal does not accurately reflect what the bill is all about. But this indeed was what the bill was all about. It was about when you have a woman that is pregnant, there is no criminal penalty in the law as it stands right now. There's actually a gap in the criminal code that does not attach a criminal penalty for that is reflective of the fact that a woman has a baby inside of her, that if you commit a violent act against a woman and there is harm done to the baby that she is carrying, there is no specific criminal penalty that is attached to that. So the bill simply said that if you knowingly harm a pregnant woman, knowing that she is pregnant, and the baby suffers injury or death, that you will be held accountable and there will be a criminal penalty for that. Now, that sounds like a pretty straight up and down choice for parliamentarians. However, at the second reading stage of this piece of legislation in the House of Commons, the majority of parliamentarians voted against this piece of legislation. Now, it's heartbreaking because this is something that we've all been working on for quite a while. We've wanted to see something like this placed in the House of Commons and into the hands of our parliamentarians for quite some time. And then when it was placed in their hands, there was a large majority of them that voted against it. Now, first thing, we just said in the boardroom that one of the critical components of your personal action plans as people who are engaged in citizen action is that you maintain a long view. Yes, this is a setback. When you watch liberals, members of the New Democratic Party, Green Party MP, you also see even some conservatives. When you see them voting against something like that, it is disheartening. And there's a tendency to go, why do we even bother? But we're taking a long view. We had a great conversation about the value of babies in the womb throughout this entire process. Again, would much rather have a piece of legislation passed into law and these protections for the vulnerable that live among us in our society. We'd love to see that in place. However, we didn't see it pass this time. However, we're going to keep working because you and I, we hold the long view, right? And we're willing to put in the work and we're there to serve others. You know, all of these critical components now, we got to remember what those are, even in the losses. Now, what I'm going to do, though, and this is where the action continues, is we're resolved, remember, in continuing to work to protect vulnerable people and babies in the womb. However, I'm going to make sure that you have a copy of Kathy Wagenthal's press release, her statement, and I also want you to have a vote in a list of the votes in the House of Commons so that you can find your member of Parliament and you can see which way they voted, because you live in an electoral district and you have constituent authority to speak up to your member of Parliament and let them know how you feel about the way they voted. Now, if they voted for the piece of legislation for adding these additional protections for babies in the womb, I want you to let your member of Parliament, you appreciate that. Get in touch with them, call them, write them a letter. I'll send you the links. You can find your member of Parliament, no problem. If they voted against it, I want you to respectfully let them know. Remember, we don't pound our fists on the desks of elected members of Parliament, but we let them know that we are centers of a sphere of influence that's quite large in the riding, in our neighborhood, in our community, and we all disagree with their vote against protecting children in the womb with this piece of legislation. So it's a good opportunity for you to continue to act even though we did not see this successfully passed. So that's Bill C-311, Violence Against Pregnant Women, voted down in the House of Commons, and you can still do lots about it. So, and again, respectfully, please, we want to always be respectful when we're engaging with elected representatives. All right, that's Bill C-311. Now, the Conservative Party of Canada convention that's coming up. Now, don't close your eyes or let your eyes roll back in your head if I start talking about politics, because you and I both know the reason why we talk about politics is because we want to exercise our influence within political parties as well. We are citizens that have the right to buy something called a membership in a political party, and you get a little card here, and the card comes on a piece of paper that tells you all of the things that you get. And what this boils down to here is, for $15, I get influence. So if they start talking about protecting children in the womb, if they start talking about the family, if they start talking about church, right of belief, freedom of religion, all of those things, I can exercise my influence as a member of the party with a membership card in those conversations. And so what's happening is on September the 5th to September the 7th, there is all of us that have spent the $15 and have decided to pay the money to pay hotels and flights and go there and pay the registration fee and all those things. We are going to be in that room as the Conservative Party of Canada votes to amend their policy book. Now, the policy book of the party is a big, thick document, and it's kind of dull reading. There are some exciting bits, believe me, but it's kind of dull reading. But we've all put in the work over these last many months. There are people all across the nation who have been engaged in this process. And I want you to know that it's going on, and it's going to end. It's going to come to a conclusion in Quebec City in September, where we're all going to vote on that. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because if you're not aware that this is happening, there are things that you can still do to support us all in that process. First of all, continue to pray that these principles that are represented in the 4 pillars are manifest one day in the policy books of all the political parties. Some political party policy books right now actually look a lot like this. There are actually some really good policies in place related to this. Some are sadly completely absent. So we want this represented everywhere. Parental authority, right of belief, freedom of religion, protecting the vulnerable, fiscal responsibility. These are all things we're working to advance, even in political parties. So pray. Also, if you know of anybody that is actually going to be going to that convention, or if you know of people like us who are organizing and out there training delegations and participating in the process, you could really help out by putting some money into the system so that we can continue to do that good work. If you've got a person that you know in your orbit who's going to be staying in a hotel, offer to give them $100 for the hotel, offer to give them a couple bucks towards their flight, pay for some of their meals when they're there. Tell them that you want to sow into the work that they're doing. That would be much appreciated. If you sow into our organization, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing with it. We're going to be taking that money and continuing to train and teach and raise up delegates and delegations to attend events like the Conservative Party of Canada's policy convention in September. So all of these things I want you to be thinking about. Even though you're not personally engaged in it, you can still participate in prayer and finances. All right. And encouragement. Don't forget the encouragement, because man, if you know somebody that's about to go onto this battlefield, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky to navigate. It's not a horrible experience, but it's certainly contentious at times. And you really should just give them a little shot in the arm and say, thanks so much for all you're doing. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, that to know of these things that they're going on. I'm going to put some additional details in the post-briefing notes as to where you can sow into people's lives and help move this thing along, but know that it's happening and that you could be a part of it still. All right. The final segment of the day, the home stretch. I've got a surprise for you, like I say, special guest coming up. But first, let me set it up for you. In our midst, like with the Conservative Party of Canada policy convention that's coming up, there are people that we see stand from time to time. I know I always am encouraging you here on the National Leadership Briefing to be that person that stands. I want you to be the one that stands up and takes action. But sometimes as we're all taking a breather, or maybe we're working on something else, we see someone else over there and they stand up for something that we believe in. Well, we've got that situation happening in New Brunswick right now. The Premier of the province, Premier Blaine Higgs, is standing in defense of the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. He introduced a motion that is impacting his life, his party's life, the life of parents in New Brunswick, and it's a positive step forward that he's willing to stand for the authority of parents to be involved and engaged as frontline educators, first educators, in fact, of their children in New Brunswick. And when they stand and they start taking heat and taking fire for the positions that they've taken, then we need to engage in support of them. So this is where I'm going to be bringing on my next guest here, and I'm really excited about this because I just so appreciate and love this person so much. But this is someone who, after having a few conversations with us, we got together, she went out and she just put something together, and it's going to be helpful for us to help in support Premier Blaine Higgs and what he's doing in New Brunswick. No matter where you're at in the nation, this is something that you need to pay attention to because it's an opportunity for you to show support for something that impacts us all. Okay, so let me introduce our special guest today. I have with me today, she's coming on right now, I have Faytene from For My Canada. Y'all know her, y'all love her. Let's welcome her aboard. Well, thank you so much, Faytene, for taking some time to join us today. It's always good to see you.
Oh, love it, Doug. Thank you so much for all that you do for our nation. We really appreciate you.
Well, I'm so glad when we have an opportunity not only to get together, but to get together and really do some good work, because I'm excited about where things are at right now and this opportunity that you have in front of you. Obviously, most people know you as Faytene, national television show, activist, been around a lot of years everywhere on social media. But Faytene, you are, as it turns out, for a time such as this, a mother of children living in a riding or electoral district in New Brunswick that is actually the electoral district of Premier Blaine Higgs. Is that correct?
Yeah, he is not just my premier, he's my MLA. And you're right, I'm a mom, 7 and 9. And so this is landing right in my neighborhood, right on my doorstep. So, you know, go big or go home. Right.
Yeah, well, this is great. So you and I, Faytene, we were in a meeting and we were actually talking about this issue in the riding in New Brunswick with Premier Higgs and the challenges that he's had. We've gone over some of those details here now, but you there on the ground as a mother, it really, I guess, pulled on your heart and you took action. And today, of course, we're talking about what do we do when people stand, and we've witnessed Premier Higgs stand. Now we're watching you stand, and we want to be there to support you in every way we can. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of our conversations and, of course, moving into the action that you've taken, because I really want to share this new project that you've got with the people on the briefing today.
Oh, thank you so much, Doug. And I'll start off maybe just by throwing the website out, don'tdeleteparents.ca. So everybody's going to want to remember that, don'tdeleteparents.ca. And, you know, when you have a man like Premier Blaine Higgs take a stand just for parental rights, you know, first of all, we know that this is somewhat of a rarity, right, in our nation right now, because this is such a contentious issue. It's such a nasty issue. If you poke your nose out into this one as a political leader, you have to be ready to pay a price because of the dynamics around this particular conversation right now. And yet here we have this man, and I would say he's just an incredible man. He's a grandpa. I think somebody told me he's somewhere between 72 and 74. Just a good family man who really believes that one of the most important things anyone could do in their life is to be a parent and to raise their parents well. And so as the premier, he's basically said, listen, this is a line that I will not cross. I will not allow there to be a policy that is pushed through under my tenure that will remove parents, that will put the government between parents and their children. on a life-altering decision. And so many people will know by now, and maybe you've already mentioned it, but Policy 713 came to the floor of the Legislative Assembly. The Minister of Education brought forward an amendment to say that it would be mandatory for a teacher to get the consent of the parents or the official guardian, the legal guardian of a child who is 16 years old or younger. If that child decides that they want to change their gender identity at school, and before the parent basically, or before the teacher, excuse me, can reinforce that decision, there must be parental consent, parental involvement. Obviously, we know that this is a life-altering decision. And so it's not the type of thing that's saying, hey, kids can't do this, or kids can't have choice, or even parents can't have choice. Basically, it's just a policy saying we will protect parental involvement in the life and journey of a child. And as a parent myself, I would say I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, no matter how wonderful and beautiful my children's teachers are, there's nobody that loves my kids like I do. There's nobody that cares for them. I carried them in my own body. I fed them with my own body, and they are the gasoline in my tank day after day for why I do what I do. And so for the government to step in between me or any parent and my children and say, hey, we know better, that's just not okay. And so here we have a Premier Blaine Higgs, who's willing to stand with parents and say, listen, parents need to be involved. They should not be deleted out of the lives of their children on any matter, right? Now, this is specifically the sexual health issue, but I would say that this extends to any issue. If a child is struggling with suicide and depression, if they're struggling with if they're fainting, if they're having seizures, it's like mom and dad should be the first one to be called when it comes to the health and well-being of a child. So to support Blaine Higgs, we've started this website right here just to galvanize parents locally. But I want to say this, Doug, this one isn't just a local issue, because as is often the case in these situations, it's precedent setting, So the bottom line is if Blaine Higgs is able to stand, and if he is supported by parents, by the community, by the political system here in New Brunswick, and he comes out shining on the other side of this with parents, that will be not only a political win and a professional win for him personally and for parents, a win for parents, that will be a win for Canadians nationwide, because it will signal to other elected officials that when you stand for parents, you're going to survive. You're going to be okay. Now, if Blaine Higgs is basically politically assassinated on this issue, if he doesn't survive, that will also be a message to elected officials nationwide that when you stand with parents, it's political assassination or political suicide. And so that message would absolutely disempower the parent-child relationship nationwide when it comes to these issues. And so I want to say that, this whole Don't Delete Parents initiative, go check it out. There's a petition there where you can sign on the dotted line to support Blaine Higgs. And once that petition, every time we get another 5,000 names on that petition, we are going to send that petition. We're going to print it off, package it up, send it off to all the MLAs to say, these are parents right here in New Brunswick that are standing with Blaine Higgs. But these are also parents across Canada that are watching what's happening in New Brunswick right now and are standing with Blaine Higgs. And so I want to encourage everybody who's watching this to not only do this, not only to take a minute to go sign that petition at don'tdeleteparents.ca, but to share it. What happened, Doug, is when I first shared it out on my social media and on our email list, it actually exploded. We were getting about 100 signatures an hour, which is fantastic. But in the last couple of days, we've been getting maybe like 1 or 2 signatures an hour. And so we want to keep this thing moving so that we can send a message to our leaders nationwide that this one matters. And now on the website as well, there's also a couple other things that are posted. There's basically 3 goals that we have. Number 1, we want to support Blaine Higgs. Number 2 is we just want to support this message that parents should never be deleted out of the lives of their children by the government. Obviously anyone who's putting 2 and 2 together here will be able to state the obvious that this is reminiscent of what happened with the residential schools, which was one of our nation's greatest atrocities, where the government stepped in and said, hey, we know better than parents. We know better than the Indigenous parents. And so we're gonna take the kids out of the influence of the parents into our influence. Well, it's one of the greatest stains on our nation, if not the greatest stain on our nation. And so we cannot repeat this ideology in any format, format. And then the last thing that we're also encouraging through this movement, through the website, is that the money should follow the parents and the families. So if at some point we just lose faith in the system, we lose trust in our leaders, and we decide to take our kids out of school, or maybe we just decide that's the best decision for us for another reason. Maybe we don't lose faith, but we just decide that's the best decision for us, or we decide to put our kids in private school or start a school, that the money should follow the families. And we should not be forced to prop up a system that is failing us and possibly doing damage to the family unit nationwide in any capacity. So don't delete parents, Doug.
And that's exactly what we're going to share in the post brief. Yeah, we're going to share these in the post briefing notes today for sure, because sitting by and watching someone stand beside you and applauding them and doing whatever it is that we could do, that's oftentimes not enough. You have to take some action. You have to go on websites. You have to put down your name. You have to endorse what is happening. You have to say, I am there supporting Premier Higgs with your signature on a petition. But when you take that and then share it, now you're taking a firm positive action. You're now growing the reach. You're increasing the influence of the campaign. So everybody knows here on the National Leadership Briefing, don't just click like and subscribe and then forward it on social media. You might have to download the link, get the web address, go to your own personal email list. You remember, we don't want to get caught up in the algorithms of Facebook and all of the social media sites. We want to make sure we're beating the algorithm. So share it through your traditional email streams and make sure we get that word out there, because when someone stands, we've got to stand with them. Thank you so much, Faytene, for all you're doing in New Brunswick. I'm just going to standing ready with you all the time. So whatever you're working on, but this is all about the first pillar, and it's where we want to be on the National Leadership Briefing, standing with you and Premier Higgs in New Brunswick.
Thank you, Doug. And we need to be so grateful. Also, would be another action point. Send him a card. Just look up his address, send him a card, encourage his wife, encourage his staff. It goes such a long way. But definitely sign that petition, because we're going to multiply the impact of that click if you do.
Great. And we'll put the Premier Higgs, we'll put his contact points in there as well to send that card off. That's an excellent idea. Well, thanks so much, Faytene. I appreciate your time today. God bless you and all you're doing out there.
Yeah, much respect, Doug. Thanks for your time too.
The bear has been poked. It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors. You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Well, that brings our time together today to a close, and I just wanted to thank you for that time. Of course, let's review quickly what you've got coming. You're going to have, of course, the information you need to introduce new people to the next National Leadership Briefing. I'll make sure you have the web address to the website where you can introduce the registration link to people. I also want to spotlight all of those NLB Essential Training videos that I've been referencing that you can go and watch and share with other people. It helps explain who it is we are and what it is we want to accomplish and the points that we rally around here on the briefing. Also, make sure that you have all the information on the Sphere Authority training template that we shared in the boardroom there. I want you to really get used to using that template when you're showing people what it is that we do. Print out a couple of copies. I'll make sure you've got a copy of that so that you can do that practice. And then we also want to get you in your hands the voting records of all of the members of Parliament, so you can take action on and follow up on Bill C-311, the Protecting Violence Against Pregnant Women Act that was voted down in the House of Commons. Want to make sure you have that so you know where your member of Parliament stands. And of course, the CPC convention, I'll put a web link in there where you can donate to either our organization, or you can look around in your own sphere of influence for people who are going to convention and support them financially and with your prayers. That would be great too. And of course, in the end, I also wanted to make sure that we remember that Faytene is doing a good work out there, highlighting or spotlighting someone who is willing to stand for the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. And we want to stand with them. So go to that website, don'tdeleteparents.ca. I'm going to make sure you've got that information there so you can sign the petition, and then you can email it out to all of your friends. Anyway, we're out of time today. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to serving you on the road ahead in August at the next National Leadership Briefing. However, in the meantime, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.